Did you know that many major corporations have Masonic emblems hidden inside their company logos? Or maybe not. I've got a list of 7 and we're going to talk about them right now. Welcome to the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry channel. I'm Maynard Edwards, 32nd degree KCCH, your host here on the channel. Give us a thumbs up to like the video. Make sure you drop a comment below. Please share this video and by all means, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to cross that 4,000 subscribers mark and we would love if you would help us out by clicking subscribe right now. This video idea comes to me from Brother Herby Benevant, who is the rigging doctor here on YouTube. Herby is a good friend of mine, and he is a sailor and a dentist and just an all-around interesting guy, and also a Scottish Rite Freemason. Herby and I were hanging out not too long ago. Here's a picture of us from the Grand Lodge of Maryland just recently. And we got to talking about this idea that there are Masonic emblems hidden secretly inside all of these corporate logos. So I thought it would be a great video for us to do here on the channel. And I've got a list of 7, beginning with number 7, the Rolling Rock 33. I'm not a beer drinker, so I can't tell you too much about the quality, the taste, or anything else really about the Rolling Rock beer brand from Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Here is what I can tell you about the mysterious 33 that's on the side of the bottle and evidently has been there since the first bottle rolled off of the assembly line so many years ago. The illusion is that the 33 is pointing towards the 33rd and last degree of Freemasonry. As we've discussed on the channel, Freemasonry teaches a series of moral lessons. You've got the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd degree, or entered apprentice, fellowcraft, and master mason in the local lodges, what we call the blue lodges. And then after that, if a man chooses, he can go on to high degree masonry in the York Rite or in the Scottish Rite. And in the Scottish Rite, those degrees are numbered 4 through 32. However, after a man becomes a 32nd degree Mason, if he performs extraordinarily well through the fraternity, in other words, he does a lot of stuff with the fraternity, or he does a lot for the community, he can be elected to receive that 33rd degree. So Masons who've received the 33rd degree tend to be some of the busiest, most well-informed, and most well-known Masons in a given area. However, there aren't any of those connected with the original brewing of Rolling Rock beer. There's lots of rumors as to where that number 33 comes from. One of the rumors is that somebody placed a bet on horse number 33, and that's how they won the money to start the company, hence the horse on the side of the bottle. Another rumor is that 1933 was the year Prohibition ended, and that is why they put it on there. Another rumor is that it was 33 steps from the brewmaster's office to the brewery floor. There's something to do with the number of the Brewers Union. So it's like Brewers Union Local 33. And the leading contender seems to be that this slogan on the side of the bottle has 33 words in it. The thinking is that an ad man who came up with that copy, once he was done, you know, they pay per word for those kinds of things in print media, so he put the word 33 at the bottom and circled it and sent it off to the printer to have the labels printed. Well, the printer thought that that was part of the deal and threw 33 on the side of the bottles, and it's been a talking point ever since, and Rolling Rock has just kept its mouth shut because nothing sells a product like a good mystery. Number 6, the Apple App Store logo. If you look closely at the App Store logo, it looks like a pencil, a paintbrush, and I guess a piece of paper or maybe a writing desk to form the letter A. And I will grant you, it does look a little bit like the square and compass, but I think that's just happenstance because they're trying to make a stylized letter A, standing for Apple and for App Store. However, there are 2 noteworthy connections to Freemasonry with regard to Apple itself. First, Steve Wozniak, who was one of the co-founders of Apple, became a Freemason in 1980 in California at Charity Lodge number 362. To the best of my knowledge, he is still a Freemason today. I can't imagine he would get kicked out for not paying his dues, one of the richest dudes in the entire world. So I'm pretty certain he's still active. I don't know. If you're a California Freemason and you've got that answer, drop it in the comments below. The other noteworthy connection to Freemasonry is the earliest Apple company logo that they used. In fact, most people have never even seen this logo. It's a drawing of Sir Isaac Newton sitting under the apple tree, his famous legend about how he came up with the theory of gravity. And the apple clunked him on the head and he came up with the idea somehow. Now, there are many people who believe that Sir Isaac Newton was a Freemason. Modern Freemasonry traces its pinpoint origin, if you have to come up with one, to 1717, when the first Grand Lodge was formed. And this is when things really became formalized, and it's what we Masons today can trace our direct connection to. However, the roots of Freemasonry and things that would come together to form those early Grand Lodges absolutely would have been contemporary with Sir Isaac Newton's life. And many of his friends at the time, if you can say he had friends, there were some rumors that he wasn't such a nice guy and didn't have very many friends. His friends and a lot of the people he associated with were in fact Freemasons. So we don't have Sir Isaac Newton's apron and we don't have him signing into a lodge anywhere, but a lot of people do believe that if he wasn't in fact a Mason, he was at least surrounded by several Masons. So that's the other, I guess, noteworthy connection between the Apple Company and its logo and Freemasonry. Does that mean that Apple Corporation is influenced by Freemasonry? Probably not. Number 5, the United Nations flag. There are lots of conspiracy theorists who believe that Freemasons are secretly controlling the world. And one of the ways that Freemasons secretly do that are through organizations like the United Nations. And allegedly, the United Nations flag is a little wink wink because there are 33 of these sections on this stylized globe that evidently is a little nod to the 33 degrees of the Scottish Rite. Okay, this one I'm not even going to entertain. It's complete BS. Here's what I'll tell you about Freemasonry and the United Nations. I am quite certain that through its long history, the United Nations has had many men who were in fact Freemasons. Some probably were public about it. Some were probably casual Masons, meaning they became Masons and then never really went to lodge. And some were probably pretty vocal about it. But I couldn't sit here and list each and every person who was a part of the UN or associated with the United Nations that was a Freemason. Here's what I'll tell you. Brother Sishan Siv, who in the Bush administration was the U.S. economic ambassador to the United Nations, is a Freemason. I actually got to hang out with him. I know I'm dropping a name here, but wonderful, wonderful guy. He actually became a Freemason after he left the United Nations. He had retired. He was being active in the community, and he saw a poster that had a bunch of famous Freemasons on it from Washington, Ben Franklin, Neil Armstrong. And he said, what's that all about? And the guy who had the poster up on the wall said, well, that's Freemasonry. And he talked to Brother Sishan about it, and Brother Sishan was like, wow, that's pretty cool. If those guys were Masons, I want to be a part of that. Those were great men. I'd like to be associated with that. So he was a Freemason who was an important part of the United States, United Nations in the modern era. And I'm sure there were many, many others that I'm just not aware of. But does this flag allude to the 33 degrees of Freemasonry? No, that's stupid. Lucent Technologies and their mysterious burning circle. Lucent Technologies is a company that's not even around anymore. It was the hardware arm of AT&T, if you will, that got spun off in the late 90s and the early parts of 2000. So AT&T had this arm of the company that handled the hardware, and Lucent Technologies was that company. And this logo, from its very inception, has always been a little bit controversial because no one knows what the heck it is. People say, oh, it alludes to one of the rings of hell, and you say Lucent, like Lucifer, and light-bearing, and yada yada. And of course, this eventually comes around to Freemasonry. One of the things that it does get connected with, loosely, is the Ouroboros, which is a symbol used in Scottish Rite Freemasonry. The Ouroboros, or the proverbial snake eating its own tail, which is a symbol of immortality. And it's not exclusive to Freemasonry. It's used in a bunch of different traditions, and I could go into a full explanation of the Ouroboros, but does it have a particular connection to Lucent Technologies? Maybe, but not in terms of Freemasonry, just in terms of the symbol itself of a snake eating its own tail. And Lucent Technologies at the time, they liked the idea that the logo was somewhat ambiguous because it got people talking about the company. And when you're trying to get something off the ground, any attention is good attention. So they left the idea that this logo was mysterious and unexplained be a part of the company lore. Now, the company went out of business several years ago, so it's kind of been off the radar, but it was one that was talked about quite a bit in its time. Number 3, the Alfa-Romeo Crest. Alfa-Romeo is an Italian car company, and they make great cars from what I understand. I've never had one, never driven one, but they look pretty cool. And this crest has been a part of the car company since its very beginning. Let's take a look at it because there's actually 2 things here to examine. On the left, you've got that red cross on the white field, and on the right, you've got a snake eating a person while wearing a crown. So let's start with that red cross. In the Alfa-Romeo cross, that cross is the cross of municipality associated with the Milanese soldiers during the Christian Crusades. So it's a Crusader's cross. You know, not necessarily the Knights Templar, as a lot of people like to, but the Templars used a very similar cross. In the York Rite of Freemasonry, the Red Cross of Constantine Order, which is a body within the York Rite of Freemasonry, they also use a very similar red cross on a white background. Now, that symbol predates not only Alfa Romeo, but it predates Freemasonry. So is it a Masonic symbol? Not really. It's a symbol that Freemasons are using like a lot of other symbols out there. It doesn't belong exclusively to the fraternity. But the fraternity, seeing an opportunity to connect a symbol to some moral teachings, adopted it, just like I'm sure the Alfa Romeo company adopted it for whatever reasoning they had at the time. So let's take a look at the other side. The snake eating a person while wearing a crown. There are a lot of people who think that that crown looks a little bit like Scottish Rite caps. I'm not seeing it, but okay, whatever. Let's just humor them and say it looks like it. Is it actually supposed to be? No, it's complete coincidence if that's the case. Secondly, the snake eating a person. There are people who try and tie this again back to that Ouroboros we talked about a few minutes ago, but that's not a thing. So is this in any way Masonic? No. It actually is the family crest of the Visconti family, and it has been around since 1100. So even if it was something that Freemasonry had adopted, it certainly wasn't something that Freemasonry invented. Number 2, Club 33 at Disneyland. It's not that much of a secret anymore. However, for many, many years, there was a secret club inside Disneyland, a fancy schmancy restaurant, and it cost a small fortune to join, and it was a big deal to be a member of Club 33. And I think it's still a pretty big deal. There's not that many members, and like I said, it costs a small fortune to join. It's real off the grid. Like, you got to know where it is in order to get inside the park. It's one of Disney's most closely guarded, I guess, secrets, we'll say, inside the confines of Disneyland. And in order to get in, there's all kinds of hoops you have to jump through aside from stroking that big check. What does that number 33 allude to? Is this another allusion to the number 33 in the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry? No, it has to do with the address in Liberty Square where Club 33 is found. I will say there is a sort of quasi-Masonic connection to Walt Disney himself, and that is that Walt Disney was a member of the International Order of DeMolay. The International Order of DeMolay is a Masonic youth group for young men. It has been around since the early 1920s, and Walt Disney was in fact a member of the Order of DeMolay. We're going to talk about DeMolay here on the channel in the very near future with my son, who is a DeMolay. In fact, he's incoming Maryland State Master Counselor. Yes, I know, dad brag, but come on, it's my kid. So it's definitely something we're going to talk about here on the channel. Yes, it's a dad brag, I'm sorry. But Walt Disney was a DeMolay. Walt never became a Freemason. I don't think it had anything to do with because he didn't believe in Masonry or anything like that, but Walt Disney was just a tremendously busy guy and never got the chance to take the degrees. So is there a connection between the number 33 at Club 33? No. Is there a quasi-Disney connection to Freemasonry? Yeah, kind of, with the DeMolay. Now let's get to number 1 on the list, the Gmail logo. Gmail is one of the most widely used email platforms in the entire world. Millions and millions of people use Gmail all day, every day, without realizing that that Gmail logo looks an awful lot like a Masonic apron. I know, it looks just like a Masonic apron, doesn't it? It also looks an awful lot like an envelope. And since it's Gmail, my guess is that it's supposed to be an envelope and not a Masonic apron. This has got to be the dumbest one on the list, which is why I put it at number 1. This is people looking at things and just seeing what they want to see. They start out with the idea of Freemasons must be controlling the world. They're doing it through the computer. I love when people use the words the computer. And they must be doing it through our email, and so Gmail must be Masonic in nature. Oh my gosh, it looks like an apron. That's the dumbest line of thinking I've ever even... it took me so long to wrap my head around like how you got from point A to point B on that. But here's the thing. It's an envelope. It's an envelope. It is an envelope. It is not a Masonic apron. Does it look a little like an apron? Yeah, but that's just by happenstance. Aprons have this flap on the front here, and that flap has a particular purpose in Masonic teaching, but it doesn't have anything to do with Gmail, and Gmail doesn't have anything to do with Freemasonry. I have done a lot of research on the founders of Gmail and things of that nature. I can't find even the slightest Masonic connection. Are some people who work for Google or Alphabet or whatever they're called this week Masons? Yeah, probably. I'll bet you there's lots of Masons that work there. I'll bet you there are guys whose fathers and grandfathers were Masons. However, I don't think any of them decided that the Gmail logo should secretly be an apron. I think they thought we should make it an envelope, and lo and behold, they have. So, 7 logos there that people say, oh, it's a Masonic connection. Yeah, not really, guys. Listen, I know there are a lot of people who like to say, oh, Freemasonry is a secret society, but it just doesn't bear out in the truth. Our meetings are advertised. Our buildings have big signs on them. We tell you when to come. We've got TV commercials. So if Masons were going to advertise in that manner or be connected to a company, I can promise you we would shout it from the rooftops. We've been talking about George Washington for 200 plus years, and you know, it's not something that we're secret about. We're not secret about our existence. And a lot of our teachings come directly from the Bible or other books of faith. So this idea that Masonry is a secret society is a little bit silly. And the idea that we're secretly controlling corporations, believe me when I tell you, that's not a thing. Thanks for watching here on the channel. If there's another logo I missed or one you want us to talk about, because I have a feeling we're going to have to do this kind of video again, because when I started looking up logos with Masonic ties, it was, let's just say, it was a lot of hits on Google, which of course is controlled by the Freemasons. Catch you next time right here on the Scottish Rite Freemasonry channel. Hey, if you're watching this video and you want to learn how to become a Freemason, click this video right here and it's going to give you a step-by-step process to follow on how to connect with a Masonic Lodge. And if you're already a Master Mason interested in joining the Scottish Rite, click this link right here and it's going to take you to the Scottish Rite website where you can sign up to become a Scottish Rite Mason right now.